we will take a small passage from Book 10, Canto 3, towards the end. The debate between Savitri and Yama is reaching a climax. For every argument, every proposition Savitri is putting forward, there is opposition from death. He is opposing in every respect whatever she would like to do. She is explaining to him that after all this world is the creation of God. It is out of Ananda that the whole creation has arisen, and Ananda is the destiny of this creation. She is arguing extensively on various issues, but Yama is all the while cutting her off. He is removing all her arguments, counter-arguing all the while. So Savitri is, in a certain sense, in a very difficult position. She finds that she is not able to win over him by argument, by putting proposals, by explaining to him. He is not in a position to understand the entire mystery of this creation and the purpose for which it is there. So at last, she retires from all argument. She does not speak at all. She retires from all argument. In fact, the last argument she had put to death is something like this. She tells him, to Yama, "Why dost thou vainly strive with me, O death? You are arguing with me, but in a very vain manner. What I am saying is the truth, and you are not able to understand the basic truth of this thing. You are vainly arguing with me." And she says, she asserts, "A mind delivered from all twilight thoughts. Who am I? I am free of all these twilight thoughts here. There is no haze, there is no confusion, there is no fog in my mind. It is as clear as the light itself. To whom the secrets of the gods are plain, I know what the gods are there for. What is the secret of their existence? What is the purpose? What is the mystery behind this entire creation?" She understands all these things. She says, "I know all these things, and you are arguing with me in vain. For now, at last, after all that argument with him, for now, at last, I know beyond all doubt the great stars burn with my unceasing fire. The light of the stars comes from my fire. It is because of me that the stars are burning. I know that this whole creation is arising out of my fire. The great stars burn with my unceasing fire, and life and death are both its fuel made." The stars are burning, the fire is my fire in them. And what is the fuel for the stars? Both life and death. Life is one aspect of the fuel, death is also another aspect of the fuel. It is by the combination of these two fires, these fuels, that the stars are constantly burning here. In other words, it is in the process of things that both life and death had to be together as an offering in the fire, to the fire. Life and death are both its fuel made. Life only was my blind attempt to love. Until now, I was clinging only to life, ignoring death. But that has failed. That doesn't serve the purpose. Death also has to be a part of that fire. Life only was my blind attempt to love. In the whole process, when I was only concentrating on life, earth saw my struggle, heaven my victory. When I made the fire, life as the fire for the stars, then everything was wonderful. Heaven, earth, they saw my victory in them. All shall be seas transcended. There shall kiss, casting their veils before the marriage fire, the eternal bridegroom and the eternal bride. Because of my fire, that the stars are burning, and for the stars, life and death are the fuels. And therefore, the whole process is going on. Now, in spite of the strong argument, death refuses to see her point. He does not appreciate what she is really telling, the occult mystery behind the whole process he is not able to grasp. Therefore, Savitri becomes kind of helpless. Ultimately, she has to win victory over him. Even the last argument has failed to convince him. So she has to find some other way. What does she do at that point of time, at that moment, in that situation? What does she do? She retires. She withdraws from all argument, for all activities, from all methods of persuading death to understand the whole mystery and logic of this creation. She retires. No more of words are going to help her. So, what happens is something very beautiful, something very interesting, something very powerful. But now, after all that argument, the poet is describing her condition, the state. But now, her spirit's a flame of conscient force, spirit's flame of conscient force, retiring from a sweetness without fruit. She was arguing, she was not getting any fruit of that sweetness, so it retires. Retiring from a sweetness without fruit, call back her thoughts from speech to sit within. She stopped talking. Call back her thoughts from speech to sit within. She enters within her own soul. In a deep room in meditation's house. Where does she sit? Within her soul. There is a chamber where she does meditation. So in that soul, in that meditation's house, she goes and retires. She stops talking. Speech is withdrawn, thought is withdrawn, and she enters into the state of meditation fully. So in the meditation's house, what does she witness? What does she see? She sees that a constant yajna is being performed in that house, in that chamber, in that meditation chamber, room, big room or whatever you want to call it. A big yajna is being performed constantly within her soul. Retiring from a sweetness without fruit, call back her thoughts from speech to sit within, in a deep room in meditation's house. So that is the occult chamber. And she sees a yajna being performed constantly. Who is performing the yajna? For only there could dwell the soul's firm truth. She knew that arguing with death is becoming vain. So where is the firmness of truth now? She knows that the firmness of truth lies only within her soul, deep in her soul. And she has to find that firmness of truth within her soul. Call back her thoughts from speech to sit within, in a deep room in meditation's house, for only there could dwell the soul's firm truth, imperishable, The formless of the truth, nothing can destroy it. It cannot decay, it cannot disintegrate, it cannot disappear. Imperishable, a tongue of sacrifice, a flame is rising with its tongue, jwala, leaping up, tongue of sacrifice. Although she has fallen silent, she has ceased speaking. Here is another tongue now which is leaping up. The tongue of fire. It is that who is going to speak now. To whom? To death. The tongue of fire. A tongue of sacrifice. It flamed unquenched upon the central hearth, Yajna Kunda, where the yajna is being performed. It is there that the tongue of fire is leaping up. It flamed unquenched upon the central hearth, where burns for the high household lord and his mate, the homestead's sentinel and witness fire, from which the altars of the gods are lit. It is on this yajna that the flame of sacrifice is rising, and it is there that even the altars of the gods get kindled. They remain burning because of that, you see. So she sees that within her deep soul there is a constant yajna going on, and it is that yajna which sustains the yajna of all the gods. It is the yajna in the soul of Savitri which is really maintaining, supporting, upholding the yajna of the gods constantly. Now, what does she see there in the yajna? She says that there is a yajmana, a person, the household lord, who is making the offerings, and on his side is sitting his spouse, his mate, Yajmanin. It is they who are performing the yajna in the house of Savitri's meditation. In her soul, it is the constant yajna going on, that yajna being performed by the Supreme Lord Himself and His Divine Shakti sitting by His side. It is they who are constantly performing the yajna. Ishvara and Ishwari sitting in front of the yajna kunda and making offerings to the fire. It is that which is constantly burning in her soul. And it is that yajna of Ishvara and Ishwari going on in her soul which sustains the yajnas, the 1,000 yajnas of all the gods. So all the small little creations are upheld, are supported, are maintained by the yajnas of the gods. But the main yajna is the soul of Savitri, and it is that which is really maintaining the entire creation. So she sees that a real huge big yajna is constantly going on in her soul. And there she sees the firmness of truth being maintained in that yajna. So it is that yajna which will really sustain the entire creation. Yes, death is there, but death cannot do anything against that truth which is now rising from that yajna. So she sees that possibility. In other words, all her arguments, all her disputations with Yama, counter arguments which were constantly going on, they have become futile, and the only remedy is to go back to the truth which is deep within you, the truth on which the entire yajna is being performed. And Savitri sees that that is happening. Now, as a result of that, what happens? Something most wonderful. Suddenly, there is the fruit, Parashruti of that yajna. She sees that yajna is constantly going on in her soul, and she is witnessing something different altogether. Until now, through the occult worlds of death, it is the spirit of Satyavan who is in front. Behind him is Yama, and behind Yama is Savitri following them. So the procession is Satyavan's spirit, death, Savitri. So that is the procession which is constantly going to the home of Yama, to the house of Yama. It is constantly going like that. And it is death who is standing between Satyavan in front and Savitri behind. So he is separating Satyavan and Savitri, and he has to disappear if they had to come together, if they had to unite. So that is the proposition here. Now, with the yajna, what does she see? She sees that it is not from behind that she is leading the procession. It is not that she is pushing. She has already now become the leader of the procession. And in fact, this is a very beautiful description here. All still compelled went gliding on unchanged. Still was the order of this verse reversed. The entire sequence of this verse of Satyavan, Yama, Savitri, the whole sequence, that whole order is totally reversed. What happened? The mortal led. Savitri, who is in mortal form, she has become the leader of the procession now. She has become the guide, the procession, who has taken the control of the entire sequence of events. The mortal led, the God and spirit obeyed. What she says, what she commands, God, Yama, has to accept, has to obey, and of course the spirit also will obey her. The mortal led, the God and spirit obeyed, and she behind was leader of their march. From behind she had become the leader of their march. And they in front were followers of her will. Whatever she wills, it is that they execute. Onward they journeyed to the drifting waves, vaguely companioned by the glimmering mist. So that is how the process is moving on. While the procession is moving, still the fate is uncertain. Savitri has performed the yajna, the fruit is definitely there, but still it has to work itself out in the actuality. And that is what will happen later on, that Savitri wins total victory over death, Yama, and he is vanquished. Not only vanquished, eventually his true form is revealed by her. Who is Yama after all? It is a veil put on by the Divine Himself, by the Supreme Himself, for a certain purpose. Death is nothing but veil supreme. And when that veil is removed, behind that death, who stands? The true Supreme. And it is He then who becomes the giver of goals to Savitri. So the importance of this yajna is that she sees something wonderful happening there. Constantly Ishvara and Ishwari themselves are offering ahutis to the fire. The entire creation is maintained because of that, and as a result of that, if something has to happen, if the victory has to be won over death, it is that which will win victory over death and nothing else. It is the yajna which is going to really bring victory to Savitri. In other words, the Vedic yajna is something extremely significant, something important, something marvelous, very meaningful. In fact, nothing can be achieved without yajna, without sacrifice. Sacrifice in the mystic sense, in the true sense. You may do tapas, your tapasya is always there, but still ultimately it is the sacrifice which alone will produce the result. So, the importance of Savitri's house of meditation is the yajna in the deep soul of us being performed by Ishvara and Ishwari herself, themselves sitting there. And it is they who are going to give her the fruit of victory.